Hey guys, Anthony here from Forbes and Crazy Tech Lab, and today we've got something really interesting because it is the first official disclosure of AMD's Threadripper high-end desktop platform. So what AMD have actually sent me here are a couple of the Threadripper CPUs, as you can see, in this huge flight case, and nice little Forbes engraved logo, and there's even more exciting engraved stuff inside as well, which I'll show you in a second. So very soon we've got two Threadripper CPUs landing, which are the 1950X and the 1920X. They retail for $999 and $799 respectively, with a third CPU, the 1900X, coming shortly afterwards at $549. So today, as I say, I'm going to be unboxing this official press kit from AMD, and without further ado, let's get the box open because I am dying to have a look inside. I say dying to have a look inside, I have actually had a peek already because I couldn't help myself. And today you'll probably see a few people with these boxes, and just because the sort of top tier press have been sent them for the official review, which is in, well, I can't actually say the day, but it's very soon. So make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, or follow me on Twitter, Facebook, or here on or over on Forbes, and you'll be able to check out my full review. So what do we have in here? Oh my goodness. So I've obviously got the two top-end Threadripper CPUs, and as a very nice touch, there's like a little engraved CPU there. That's just a dummy CPU in this kind of very large paperweight, but it's, yeah, that's a very nice touch from AMD. This is probably one of the best press kits I've actually ever received. So that's going to be having pride of joy on my desk. Let's just move that way out of the way at the moment because it's extremely heavy. And so yeah, what you've got here are the 1950X and the 1920X, both Ryzen Threadripper. And the idea today, if I can actually get one out, because they do seem to be wedged in a bit, the idea today is just to unbox both of these CPUs, see what you get inside, and also to show you how to mount the Ryzen Threadripper in a motherboard, because one thing that is quite strange is that you don't actually have a socket, like a socket latch mechanism. You actually have to remove the latch on the motherboard to actually mount the CPU into the socket with a torque wrench. So apparently there's a torque wrench included in the box of every CPU. So like a little tool that you need to use, and that essentially allows you to unscrew the mounting plate and to install the processor. So obviously these are the Ryzen Threadripper official packages. If you order a Threadripper CPU, yours will come in this as well. And as you can see there on the specifications, I'll see if I can hold that up to the light so you can actually see it. I think we're dealing with, yeah, bit too bright down there, I think. It's a very white label and very small writing. So you've got AMD Threadripper 1950X. This is the 16 core version, so there's 16 individual cores and 32 threads. The slightly lower down version, the 1920X, has 12 cores and 24 threads. And the 1900X, which was a bit of a surprise to many journalists. We only expected to have stuff 10 cores and above, but there is an 8 core as well, the 1900X, and that will be released later. So let's get the other one out, and then I can get rid of this huge flight case, and we can hopefully have a look inside. Yes, so I don't know if you can see it from here, but there's actually two glowing rings in there. I think the little LED activator switch up the top of the case here, it looks like it's kind of come loose, and the lights have been on for a while, so the battery's a bit depleted, unfortunately, because I think they were actually meant to glow through the box here, because it is kind of slightly transparent at the back. So right, let's get rid of this enormous flight case. Okay, so here we are again, and I've got the two CPUs out of the box now. So as you can see, it's a pretty big box. I know the Intel Core i9 boxes are a lot smaller than this, but it is Threadripper. It's got that name, so I think it deserves a large box. So what I'm going to do is unbox it. I haven't actually been inside these boxes yet, so this is exactly what you'll be seeing. Just move that out of the way for a second. This is exactly what you'll be seeing if you buy your own Threadripper. So I'm just going to try and do it equally here across the perforated edges, which is not easy, but we're getting there. And there we go. So let's get rid of that. And inside you've got like this little protective case. So let's see what else we've got in here. So yeah, that's the torque wrench. As you can see, it's quite an elaborate tool actually. So the idea is you just use that to open the CPU socket. It is going to be a bit of a faff. I'm not looking forward to doing this on all the dozens of motherboard reviews I'm likely going to be doing, but you know, it's just something that has to be done because it's such a large CPU. And I'm not entirely sure why AMD hasn't gone for some sort of socket latch like on LGA 2011 V3, but or you know, any of the other sockets that are around. But this is, you know, it is. Yeah, it's a decent tool. That doesn't feel like it's going to be breaking anytime soon. But of course, you'll just need to make sure that you hang on to it. It is just a standard. You know, sort of star head at the top there, like a star head screw fitting. So they're readily available in the shop. So if you do lose the tool, then it's not going to be the end of the world. Just going to have a look inside. So you get like a giant AMD Threadripper sticker and a smaller, you know, sort of case sticker there as well, which is a nice touch, along with the usual installation instructions. And possibly the most important thing in the box, apart from maybe the socket wrench thing there, is, if I can actually get it out, a socket a TR4 adapter. So STR4 is the new socket for AMD Threadripper, and this basically allows you to use any of the all-in-one liquid coolers that are made by Acetec that use this kind of fitting. So that's Plenty by Corsair, NZXT, those kind of people. And they will allow you to use those liquid coolers on socket TR4. So at the moment, there aren't that many coolers out there that can actually fit the socket. I think there's possibly even less than there were for Ryzen when it launched. I'll show you in a minute. I'll crack open a Threadripper motherboard, and we can see just how you fit that. But it's good of AMD to actually include this, because otherwise your cooling options would be very limited at launch. So I will just place that to one side. So that's a unique fitting. As you can see, it's actually slightly smaller at the top than it is at the bottom. Well, that's top and bottom. There you go. So slightly smaller at the top and larger at the bottom. That's just how the socket goes. So let's see how you actually get inside and have a look at the giant CPU which is inside. So I'm guessing you just unscrew this thing here. So you're left with the top, and there you are. That is an AMD Ryzen Threadripper CPU in there, which you can see is absolutely enormous. What I might do in a minute is just go and get a 7900X, an Intel 7900X, just so you can compare it side by side. And this one's actually the 1920X. So that's the lower of the two. This one retails for $799, as I say. I'm going to try and get it out. I think it's kind of... It's a very elaborate box, this one. There's all sorts of clips and things like that. So, but I guess when you're dealing with $1,000 worth of processor, you kind of want it to be secure. So there we go. And let's take a look and see how we actually get in here, because I'm still not actually in. Ah, there we go. Yeah, it just pops off the top. Yeah, so that is a pretty cool CPU box, if ever there was one. And I guess, as I said before, it's kind of what you'd maybe expect with something that's called Threadripper. So, and there's another clip here. My goodness, I don't think AMD's in any danger of having any of these CPUs broken on arrival. And then yeah, so that just kind of slips out like that. And yeah, you've got a super large CPU there. And if I trying to work out how to actually get it out from the back now. So I think it just pops out of a few clips. I mean, the weight of this thing is absolutely ridiculous. I'm guessing that probably weighs about 3 or 4 times as much as a Core i9 CPU. Of course, underneath the heat spreader, there are 4 dies, but 2 of those are actually dummy dies because it's such a large CPU with so many pins on the back. They've had to actually double up on the dies, and 2 of them are just dummies, just to support the heat spreader, which is kind of crazy. So that's pretty much it for the Ryzen unboxing, and as I mentioned, what I will do is just go and grab a Threadripper motherboard. I didn't quite have enough room here on the desk with the flight case as well, so I'll just go and grab that motherboard, and then we can go ahead and see how you actually fit it into the socket. As you can see, these boxes I've literally just opened here, so I've never actually mounted the CPU into the motherboard yet, so we'll be doing that for the first time together in a minute, so if you bear with me. Okay, I think we're back, and as you can see here, I've got ASUS's crazy ROG Zenith Extreme motherboard. This is probably going to be the biggest and most expensive X399 motherboard that anybody produces, I think. It's pretty crazy. They've got loads and loads of features on this board. You've got onboard Wi-Fi, you've got ASUS's uprated audio, M.2 ports, including one port that actually sits in the this 9th DIMM slot. Over the edge here, there's actually an adapter in the box that you can slot an M.2 SSD onto and plug that into that DIMM slot, so that's kind of crazy. You've got 2 8-pin EPS 12 volt connectors as well, U.2, USB 3, USB 3 3.1, and you've got Type C and Type A ports on the back there, so all in all it's an absolutely crazy motherboard. So I'm going to show you how to install Threadripper into this motherboard, and to start with then you'll need to get your CPU out of the packaging, and basically it will appear like this in an orange clip. And you don't want to remove it from that, at least, you know, you might want to take it out, but you need to put it back in again in order to actually fit it into your case, fit it into the socket. So notice I'm just using a rubber glove here, just like a neoprene glove. I actually use it for spray painting, but it's also good for handling CPUs. You don't really want to get your fingerprints on the back of those gold connectors if you can help it, especially with a £1,000 CPU like this. So what I'll do is I'll just rearrange things here, and we can get a close-up of the CPU socket and see what's actually going on. And then I will install a Asetek based cooler, which is the NZXT Kraken X42 140mm all-in-one liquid cooler here, so we'll look at installing that as well. So let's get everything set up. Okay, so here we are, and we've got the CPU socket in front of us, and the first thing you'll need to do is to unscrew the Torx screws in the socket using the tool that you got from AMD in your CPU pack. So we will just go ahead and unscrew those. If you just do them one by one, a few turns, just so you don't get any kickback from the tension, and then eventually it should just pop open like that. So both of the latches here, there are actually 2 latches. They're both spring loaded. The second one is a bit more powerful, so just kind of hold it as you release it, like so. So that's the second one coming up, and as you can see in there, there's actually a plastic cover that you'll need to remove, and it actually looks pretty much identical to the yellow clip that's in the that surrounds the Ryzen CPU itself. So that will actually need to be removed before you do anything. And then, as you can see, I'll just flip the board round here. There is a normal plastic protector in that socket as well. That's kind of like the ones that you see on motherboards, like Intel motherboards anyway these days. This is obviously an AMD motherboard. So leave that in there for the moment, because that's there to protect the pins. There are lots and lots of very delicate pins in the socket, and the whole reason for this is basically because the Ryzen Threadripper CPU is so huge and heavy that if you drop it into the socket, you're gonna kill your motherboard, because it's just gonna ruin pins and they'll be beyond repair. So I've managed to repair some Intel motherboards with bent pins, but with this you'd stand absolutely no chance. So first of all, we've opened the latch, and then you will need to remove that plastic cover, like so. So you're basically just left with this this spring-loaded arm here, and all you need to do is to take your Ryzen Threadripper and simply just slot it down like this. Make sure that it actually goes into the runs on either side, and eventually it will just go clunk into place like that. And what you want to make sure is, before you remove that second plastic plate, is that you just kind of move this thing up and down just to make sure it's properly secure. It is the actual plastic clip is the orange clip is a little flimsy, so just make sure it's properly secure and it's not broken or anything like that. And just rest it up like this so you can get at the plastic socket. And we'll look at doing this in reverse in a minute, how you actually remove your CPU. So there we go. That's kind of fully removed now. And then again, I just tend to just hold it with both fingers and just place it down into the socket, and then it goes clip. And that is basically your Ryzen Threadripper installed. And then all you need to do is to press down the top socket latch and just screw that into place like so. And you will find what I'll do is I'll just go round on each corner first, just tightening up the screws so not to put maximum tension on any one screw at any one time. And then what you will find is, once you screw it like this, you'll get to a certain point where the screw will stop turning, and using the tool you'll be able to identify that quite easily, because clunk, it just kind of locks off, and you've got a little bit of play there at the end. So basically when that happens, when you get that little kick at the end, that's basically when you need to stop screwing. So I don't need to do that on all the other ones, but I'll just show you again on here. A bit tricky doing it with my left hand, so I'm holding the other hand's holding the motherboard, but we're getting there. And there you go. So it just has that kind of little kick at the end that shows you when you need to stop screwing. So there's basically a set amount of torque that you can apply before that happens, which is really good. And then that is it as far as actually installing your Ryzen Threadripper. So we will just have a quick look at how you uninstall it, or how I would uninstall it. So basically you need to go through everything else in reverse. So unscrew all of these Torx heads. And there is quite a bit of torque applied on those actually. So there we go. That's the top arm is already sprung open because it's spring loaded. And then what you need to do is gently pry open the socket, and just when you're doing this, just make sure that the thing hasn't come loose. The orange clip and the CPU haven't come loose and they're not about to fall into the CPU socket. It shouldn't happen because it's fairly robust. And then just kind of lift the CPU up like this. Then the first thing you should do next is to replace that CPU socket. I think I've actually got that the wrong way around there. So replace that protection socket, the protection cap on the socket. So whatever happens now, the socket's protected and you're not going to damage any of those pins. And then all you need to do is just pull the Ryzen Threadripper out. And there we go. So that's how you install and uninstall a Ryzen Threadripper CPU. And what I will do now is just quickly pop that back in and remove that socket protection cap again and install the CPU. And what I'll do is just quickly lock it down on the top screw there, because I'm only going to do this roughly. It's just to show you how to install a CPU cooler. So what I'll do is I'll just quickly move the camera back so we can get a better view of this, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so as you can see, I've got the motherboard back and laid out so we can have a look at installing a processor cooler. Specifically in this case, I'm going to be using the adapter that AMD provides with every Threadripper CPU, which works with Acetec made all-in-one liquid coolers. So that's coolers such as the NZXT Kraken X42, which I'm using here. And as you can see, the adapter has wider threads at the bottom and 2 narrower ones at the top, and that is basically what the Threadripper socket looks like. It's one of the only sort of asymmetrical sort of alignments for the threads that I've seen on a processor socket. But anyway, it does work, and all you need to do is to use that adapter. It's exactly the same kind of thing that you'd use with the cooler anyway. It's just got some slightly different spaced mounting arms there, and then all you do is just place it on the socket like so. It's very, very similar to Intel's LGA 2011 with a really good socket mount, and back plates and screw threads, so you get a really good mount every time. And there you go. That is pretty much it. Just thumb screws, place the thing on the socket, and away you go. So I think it's a good idea of AMD to include this, because there isn't much socket TR4 Threadripper socket compatibility out of the at the moment. So I know that Arctic and Noctua, I believe, have got some air coolers around, and but with this adapter, it just means that there's that much more choice, especially in terms of the high-end liquid cooling. I do know that EK Water Blocks is coming out with something as well, so there will be the option to liquid cool it at some point with DIY liquid cooling. But there you go. So that's how you install a Threadripper CPU, how you remove it, and also how you go about installing an all-in-one liquid cooler on that socket. So there we go. I'd like to thank AMD for sending me the samples, and I'll be back with a full Threadripper review on Forbes and a quick roundup here on YouTube as well. So feel free to subscribe and leave your comments below.